The Pacific Northwest is filled with so many mysterious events that a hole in the ground seems rather innocuous at first glance. It isn't until you realize that Mel's Hole is also a bottomless pit that brings animals back from the dead that you realize it is as mysterious as Bigfoot sightings and miles of giant mushrooms. There is nothing as mysterious as Mel's Hole in Washington state. During an interview on Coast to Coast AM, a caller identifying himself as Mel Waters claimed to have found a bottomless pit on his property. As you might imagine, the creepiness escalated from there. As with so many supernatural phenomena of today, this one in Washington also straddles the famous and elusive line. The legend itself began long before Mel Waters, if he existed at all, brought it to the public's attention. Prior to Waters buying the property, local residents, authorities, and indigenous tribes were aware of the hole. A 9-foot diameter pit was built with walls constructed out of hand-placed bricks, extending 15 feet down before transitioning into dirt and darkness. Affectionately called the Devil's Hole, locals all agreed that the hole's existence was somewhat unsettling, but no one cared, nor wanted, to ponder too hard what something might be. Rather than fill the pit with water, residents of Monastash Ridge used it as a garbage dump and did not question its eerie lack of water. According to Waters' interview with Coast to Coast AM host Art Bell, he decided to test the hole once he realized it was not filling up. A sturdy fishing rod and thousands of feet of fishing line would be brought out to the hole, weighed down, and then measured how far it could sink before hitting the bottom. Waters ended up with more than he bargained for after the test. The hole had no bottom. In addition, if there is a bottom, it is deep enough that the weighted line has not broken after 80,000 feet. Neither Waters nor anyone else has been able to reach the bottom. When approaching the pit, some people have noticed something strange about the wildlife, or, more accurately, the lack of it. Animals would do their best to avoid it as much as possible. Apparently, Waters' own dogs refused to go near the hole. They dug their paws into the ground in protest when he tried to bring them closer. Other visitors noted that birds never flew directly over it, and no other small animals appeared nearby. In some reports, the only animal evidence was piles of bones strewn around the pit mouth. In trying to find the bottom of the hole on his property, Waters allegedly dropped 80,000 feet of fishing line into it before he realized there might be something more sinister at play than the depth of the hole. In order to better understand this seemingly endless pit, Waters conducted a variety of other tests. His yells into the pit were answered by silence instead of an echo, and his handheld radio would play music that was decades out of date if he brought it close enough to the hole. Testing was also done at the second Devil's Hole, a pit in Nevada believed to possess properties similar to those of the Washington Hole. A bucket of ice was lowered 1,500 feet into the hole and brought back up. It found to be warm, seemed to dry out the air around it, and even became flammable. Mel Waters' interview with Art Bell on Coast to Coast AM brought the hole to the public's attention, and one particular claim caught their attention. The locals would dump anything from old machinery or cattle remains in the hole, according to Waters. It seems, however, that throwing something down the hole is not guaranteed to keep it there. During the interview, Waters claimed that when a neighbor's dog died, his neighbor brought the dog to the hole. Afterward, he allegedly told Waters he saw his dog alive and well in the forest, still wearing its collar, after he had done so. Neither a neighbor nor any other individual has independently confirmed this. Mel Waters claimed to have lowered a sheep into Mel's Hole as part of one of his many experiments. The fate of the sheep was one of the most chilling tales related to Mel's Hole. It was absolutely terrified of the pit, just like Waters' dogs and other local animals, and Waters had to tranquilize it before he could get it close enough to the hole's mouth. Having heard about the bizarre fate of a bucket of ice that apparently heated up and became flammable after being lowered into a similar hole, Waters decided to experiment with sheep. The sheep's fate, however, was even stranger. It appeared that the sheep had been cooked from the inside when Waters lifted it back up out of the hole. A stranger fact was that something seemed to be moving in it, and when it was cut open, Waters saw what he described as looking like a fetal seal with human eyes staring back at him. As soon as he saw the creature, he immediately threw it back into the hole. Some of the neighbors who heard his story said they too had seen a similar creature around the hole before. Regardless of what it is, it may be the only thing that can get into and out of Mel's hole. In Washington, Mel Waters' property is home to the original pit, but it's not the only one. There is a hole in Nevada with properties similar to those of Mel's hole. Waters said he also visited the second hole, and it was just as bizarre and fascinating as the one he found on his property. A species of bird had been seen circling the Nevada pit, and when Waters attempted to shoot one for study, he discovered that the bullets ricocheted right off of them. Bulletproof birds would suggest that Mel's hole is just as full of supernatural secrets as the Nevada hole. The alleged interaction between Mel Waters and the U.S. government suggests that Mel's hole may have a greater significance than even Waters realized. Apparently, Waters was prevented from entering his own property by government agents who claimed that a plane had crashed there. They abruptly changed tack when he refused to believe their story, offering him $250,000 to lease his land on one condition: if he accepted, he would have to leave the country. At the time, Waters was in dire straits and accepted the offer. After moving to Australia, he didn't return for several years. Waters said that when he returned, government agents claimed to have bought the property. A local told Waters that black vans and helicopters had been guarding the area around the pit since he left. Mel Waters had never voted, paid taxes, or lived in the area during the time when he claimed to have sold the land to the government. Mel Waters, whether he was a hoax or a pseudonym, was ultimately consumed by the mystery of the hole. Listeners of Coast to Coast AM were intrigued by the story of Mel's hole, including a geologist named Jack Powell. Powell recognized the pit as being an abandoned mine shaft he was familiar with from his childhood after hearing Waters describe the features of the pit on the radio. Powell was stunned to learn that Waters had tested the depth of the hole by lowering at least 80,000 feet of fishing line into it. A hole that deep is physically impossible. According to Powell's geological expertise, this only means that Waters designed a spectacular hoax, or that the many mysteries posed by Mel's hole are caused by a localized geological anomaly. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more paranormal stories on the Paranormal Portal.